Floyd Patterson is something of an enigma within boxing. On one hand, he was once boxing's youngest heavyweight champion, with devastating hand speed and power to go with a revolutionary boxing style that allowed him to destroy fighters much larger than himself. On the other, he remained a shy and timid boy who spent most of his time in his own head. He was vulnerable and spent much of his time in the ring on the canvas. But if Patterson was as feeble as some journalists would describe him, why did he keep getting back up? Patterson was born on the 4th of January 1935, with his parents moving to Brooklyn when he was a year old. Thomas Patterson worked physical jobs his whole life, often returning home and collapsing to sleep, with his work gear still on. His mother worked small jobs on top of the massive job of raising 6 children. Floyd was a troubled child and relentlessly bullied for the hand-me-down clothes he wore. In response, he isolated himself, staying out at night and stealing food and milk. For both truancy and petty crime, Floyd was sent to Wiltburg School for Boys in upstate New York. He remained shy but discovered his love for nature. Soon after, he would also develop his love for boxing, travelling 10 blocks uptown to Gramercy Park Gym, famously ran by a certain Customato. By just 17 years old, he was Olympic champion. Patterson's relentless peekaboo style also served him well as a pro. He had some of the fastest hands ever seen by a heavyweight, along with devastating knockout power. Aside from an 8-round points defeat to Jerry Maxime, Patterson flourished as a professional, leading to his first world title shot versus the legendary Archie Moore. Patterson boxed to a masterclass performance, bobbing and weaving in close range, too close to allow Moore to throw anything meaningful, and when he did, opening up gaps for Floyd to land his devastating hooks. Patterson was practically untouched by the time he set up the fight-ending left hook in round 5 to become the youngest heavyweight champion in history, just 21 years old. The limelight of being a champion never changed Patterson. Unlike many both before and after him, he never cheated or did any drugs and was a genuinely good man. However, Patterson would lose the title in 1959, admitting that he took his eye off the ball before his title defence versus the Swede Ingemar Johansson. He was knocked down 7 times in round 3, gallantly getting up every time before eventually being stopped on his feet. Patterson would revert to his childhood coping mechanism, locking himself away. Months passed until we saw Johansson mock him on TV. Patterson would come back with a vengeance. 12 months after losing his title, Patterson would become the first heavyweight to ever reclaim it, destroying his man in 5 rounds with a picture-perfect gazelle hook. A rubber match between the two was inevitable. In this time, the next real contender to the throne was on the come-up. Patterson had already been offered the Sonny Liston bout as far back as 1958, but the champion's legendary manager Customato turned down the bout due to the offer coming from the IBC and its known mob connections. Perhaps D'Amato could also see how the bout would go. But with wins over Cleveland Williams, Zora Foley and Eddie Machen all coming in 1960, Liston was becoming undeniable. Patterson and Johansson would go at it again one more time, Patterson coming back from the brink, having been knocked down by Johansson twice in the first, to knock down the Swede in the same round and finish the job by the 6th. D'Amato remained keen to avoid Liston, attempting to set up a fight with Henry Cooper, which fell through, before settling on the number 10 ranked Tom McNeely. Patterson was dropped again, but would come back to drop the overmatched McNeely 11 times en route to a 4th round victory. Finally, Patterson versus Liston became inevitable. Patterson was a true fighting champion. Despite pressure from the NAACP and even President John F. Kennedy, due to the fact that Patterson was seen as the perfect champion to represent the civil rights movement, whereas Liston and his ties to the mob certainly was not. Patterson agreed to fight Liston. He stated, "I knew if I wanted to go to sleep comfortably, I'd have to take on Liston." Some people said, what if you lose and he wins? Then coloured people will suffer. But maybe if Liston wins, he'll live up to the title. He may make people look up to him. They say boxing is 90% a mental game, and this rings true regarding Patterson and Liston, where Liston appeared to intimidate the champion long before the first bell went. The fight itself would last just 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Patterson was outweighed by 25 pounds and was unable to use his speed to unsettle Liston. The rematch would be no different, ending in 2 minutes and 10 seconds. For most, this would have been the end of the story, but not for Patterson as he looked to work his way back to the top. It was Muhammad Ali that dethroned Sonny Liston in 1965, and the champ agreed to defend against Patterson, who was on the comeback trail. Ali would stop Patterson in 12 rounds, who was restricted in his usual style by a slip disc in his back. Again, Patterson would battle back, scoring a great win over Henry Cooper. Floyd would draw and lose to Jerry Quarry in a pair of competitive bouts, with Patterson again being knocked down 3 times across both. It is widely considered that Patterson was then robbed of becoming a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, as he officially lost on points to Jimmy Ellis over 15 rounds. Patterson would then go unbeaten for 9 fights, before once again taking on Muhammad Ali in 1972. Patterson rolled back the years, frustrating Ali with excellent movement and landing hooks. Ali would battle back, and Patterson was eventually stopped into 7 due to cuts and swelling around the eyes. This would prove to be Patterson's last battle, a worthy way for a great champion to go, pushing one of the very best of that current generation. Patterson's reign is often mocked due to his fights with Sonny Liston and having been knocked down 20 times across his career. But to remember Patterson for just that would be a huge disservice. He was a tremendous puncher in his own right, despite routinely being outweighed by 20 pounds by his opponents. More than that, he kept taking on the best and kept getting back up. Patterson was a great fighter and a great man who should be remembered as such.